Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was the armorer on the Alec Baldwin film Rust. She's currently facing manslaughter charges after accidentally loading a live round into Alec Baldwin's gun, which led to the death of crew member Halyna Hutchins. A couple of quick things before we get started. One, I wanted to remind you that this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. We're going to start by watching some of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's police interview, and then we're going to watch just a little bit from the trial. Let's jump right in.
Do you know if anyone ever got that fanny pack?
So what you probably already noticed is that she's sitting far back in her chair. We oftentimes do that as a way to disengage with people, to create space. She looks very casual. She looks very nonchalant about the whole thing. But this is a very serious situation. So the body position and the posture doesn't really match the situation very well.
Right now it's technically inside the scene, so we can't quite grab it yet.
Okay, cool.
But you said it's black and gray?
No, it's just the gray one.
Just gray? Okay. And it was on the cart?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be secure.
And I'm not trying to point this out because it's gross. I think that there is actual meaning in her using her shirt to wipe her nose. When you think about the fact that there are certain behaviors you'd be expected to engage in a police interview, sitting up, answering questions in a certain way, she's saying, okay, cool, she's using her shirt to wipe her nose. She's engaging in behaviors that you wouldn't really expect in this situation. And I think that this is going to matter when a jury is watching this behavior. I'll explain more as we go, but all of these I think are going to add up to having people make certain presumptions about her.
And it was on the cart?
Yeah.
So it'll be secured, and if it's not part of it, we'll get it back to you as soon as we can. So like I said, this is the rights that I just need to go over, and I'll read them to you as I do. If you understand them, you can signature or check out here.
So now she's leaning forward. She's listening as they're talking about her Miranda rights. So this is a place where she appears to be a little bit more engaged than she just was.
And then read the rest here, and you understand those. And if you wish to,
I kind of would like an attorney.
You kind of like.
So you heard her say, I would kind of like an attorney. Now, she's looking down when she says that and then looks up afterwards. Sometimes when we say things that we're feeling intense about, things that maybe we're not sure about, we look away as we're saying them, and then we look for confirmation afterwards. We look to see how the person's reacting because it's less intense to say it while looking away and then look at them afterward.
I'd like an attorney.
You kind of like. What do you want to do?
I mean, and everything, and their attorney already talked to me, and I just think I should probably have an attorney represent me.
Okay, before you make any statements or talk to her.
So as you notice, she's picking at her nose, she's rubbing it a little bit. We're going to see more of this. But what that implies is that she's not feeling the need to conform. She's not asking for a tissue or something like that. And I do think that people make presumptions when they see people behave in this way. And that's a real challenge when your case depends on you being an extremely responsible person. We're going to continue on, but I'll point out more of this as we go.
And I just think I should probably have an attorney represent me.
Okay, before you make any statements or talk to us.
Well, I can probably answer a few questions.
So at any time, so I'm going to.
So right after making that statement, then she immediately creates distance. She leans back. She has her arm over the chair. Now, one of the reasons that it matters that she has her arm in this position is that she's taking up more space. And when we take up more space, more physical space by making ourselves larger, by putting our arms out or putting our arms up, which we're going to see later, that is a way of creating dominance. That changes the dynamic. Look how big I am. I'm going to take up more space. I'm going to do as I please. And so in this moment, when she is saying that she's going to respond to questions, she's creating distance and taking a dominant stance.
You don't have to talk to us. And if you want to talk to your attorney, that's fine. If you want to answer some questions, you still could change your mind during this questioning. So it's up to you. If you want to talk to us and at some point you feel like.
So once she's convinced that it's okay to respond to questions, she leans forward again. She re-engages in that way.
Maybe you want your attorney, you can, but you need to make the decision on what you want to do right now. If you want to talk to us.
How long would it take when you get here, I guess?
It's going to be you calling them.
So now she's rubbing her lips with her finger, at least that's what it appears to be. And our lips have a lot of nerves. So when we touch our lips, it calms us down. So even though she appears to be in a very calm state, even though she appears to be sort of lackadaisical about the whole thing, she is rubbing her lips, which is a pacifying behavior, a way to make herself feel calmer.
Finding out.
Really? Okay. I don't know. I don't know. It's just like such a big company, you know.
Are you talking about with the production company?
Yeah. I don't want anything in this case to be up for me as much as I possibly can.
So, no, you're fine. And you're fine.
So as she's saying this, even though she's giving the appearance of being casual, she's stroking her forehead, which we do when we feel extreme stress. And she's saying that she doesn't want this case to be messed up for her.
I'm supposed to check the guns, and I load the guns, and I hand the guns off to the actor.
Okay. How long have you been doing this? Because you mentioned you've been...
So the hands behind the head, this is not, from an optic standpoint, a good look for a jury. Because as the jury's watching this, people are oftentimes going to interpret that as a defiant stance. They're going to sit with their hands behind their head, relaxed. Think about somebody like in a school, sitting like that, putting their feet up on the desk. It's the same kind of stance. It's seen as defiant. It's seen as being oppositional in a sense. And so doing this, even though for some people maybe it's a relaxing way to sit, in the context of a police interview is probably ill-advised.
Multiple steps.
Since about March, but I've been handling guns my whole life pretty much.
So you're very familiar with guns. And this is your...
So you see that little head nod. The officer says you're very familiar with guns, and she just sort of goes like this. It's these small gestures that make it seem like maybe she's disengaged. She doesn't seem serious, for lack of a better term, in terms of body language, and that can create a big problem for juries when your whole argument is about the fact that you are a responsible person. As an armorer, you are responsible for the safety of people on set. And what she gives off with this body language is that she's very lackadaisical about things. That may not be true at all, but that's what people are going to infer from seeing this, is that she's defiant, that she doesn't care, that she's disengaged.
Your primary function, you go to different sets and you primarily handle these.
And so as she's flipping her hair up right here, we oftentimes do this, particularly women, do this when they are feeling flustered, when they're feeling upset, or when they're concerned. They tend to flip the back of their hair up. Now, this is something that we see her do throughout. Now, it could just be that her head was itching because she had her hands on the back of her head. But oftentimes we see this as what we call a ventilating behavior, sort of letting the heat off of your head. We'll watch this sequence again, then we'll keep going.
Since about March, but I've been handling guns my whole life pretty much.
So you're very familiar with guns. And this is your primary function. You go to different sets and you primarily handle these guns.
Yeah.
Okay. So...
And then she moves to the crossed arms. Now, sometimes people sit with their arms crossed because it's comfortable. It can be a comfortable way to sit or a way to stand if you're talking to somebody, but she seems like she's almost bracing herself, almost holding on while she's listening to the questions. So this seems a little bit more like tension and defensiveness than it does just sitting in a relaxed position.
Can you tell us what happened today when you started work, when you got there to work?
Yeah, I went to work. We got the guns out. My coworker Sarah, she helped me with the guns a little bit too. Yeah. And we got the guns out. We went to set. We had the guns on set. I dummied the guns up with the dummy rounds. And yeah, we were on set all day. No, nothing happened.
You can hear her sometimes letting out big sighs as she's talking. She, once again, is not very energetic about it. Not that everybody has to be when they communicate these kinds of things, but when you think about the psychology of a jury watching this, as they see her talking about something so gravely serious, it's going to make her seem like an adolescent in a sense, and adolescents are not responsible. So it's going to make her not seem responsible. Whether or not that's true, that's the body language that she's giving off, and that's going to be a real uphill battle for her. That's going to be a challenge because the goal, once again, is to convince people that you are extremely responsible. So people are going to make presumptions about you when they see this kind of body language, unconsciously, of course, that maybe you are not as serious or as experienced as you need to be doing something like this.
And then we came back from lunch, and that happened.
Okay. So you got on set with the gun, with the dummy rounds about what time? What's her last name, do you know?
Sarah's last name, I don't think she really worked with that gun that day, by the way.
So if you listen to the way that she phrased that, she doesn't seem to fully know who did and didn't come in contact with the gun that day. And if she does, she's not speaking clearly about that. And that can become, once again, a big problem, because if you're not speaking precisely and clearly about these things, people will think that you either don't know or don't care.
Sarah, what's her last name, do you know?
Sarah's last name, I don't think she really worked with that gun that day, by the way. But Sarah Zachary, Zachry.
So you and Sarah, who has access to that? So when you got there this morning, where are the guns kept?
The guns are kept on the prop truck.
On the prop truck?
Yeah. And
So when they're talking about where the guns are kept, she's flipping her hair again, doing that ventilating behavior, trying to calm down, because when people are ventilating their hair, it's typically because they're feeling upset. It tends to be a fairly strong emotion that's coming if they're feeling the need to do this.
Who has access to that? So when you got there this morning, where are the guns kept?
The guns are kept on the prop truck.
On the prop truck?
Yeah, and the dummies and everything kept on the prop truck.
Are the dummy rounds separate, contained than the gun, all in the truck?
Yeah, they're in their own box, and the guns are in the safe.
Okay. And who has access to the safe?
Sarah and I.
So she asked who has access to the safe, and she physically moved backward. As I referenced earlier, we try to create distance when we're feeling uncomfortable, when we want to create some disengagement, when we're trying not to connect as much. If you'll notice the officer on the right, or detective, I'm not sure which she is, but she's kept pretty much the same position the whole time. She's leaning forward with her hands forward. This is a way to seem engaged. So she's staying engaged with Hannah Gutierrez, whereas Hannah Gutierrez, when she hears this, backs up and is getting ready to cross her legs, which we see as a defensive stance.
And who has access to the safe?
Sarah and I.
Just the two of you?
Yes.
What about the dummy rounds? Who has access to that?
Well, the dummy rounds, they were on the cart for lunch. The dummy rounds were on the cart for lunch. All the ammo was on the cart for lunch.
Is there, so you're saying dummy rounds and ammo, are there two separate things?
So there's blanks, my bad, not ammo, but there's blanks, the blanks look different.
The language use again, saying things like my bad. Nothing wrong with that inherently, but the idea is that she's an armorer. She needs to be taken seriously. You've really got to be careful with the language you use, because very quickly people won't take you seriously.
So you're saying dummy rounds and ammo, are there two separate things?
So there's blanks, my bad, not ammo, but there's blanks, the blanks look different.
And the bigger challenge is the fact that she is relatively young. If she was older and she was really well established and extremely experienced, these kinds of behaviors probably wouldn't be looked at the same way. You could still be serious or be taken seriously and say some of these things if you were really well established and respected in the industry. As someone who is a relative newbie, doing this makes her seem even more of a newbie. It makes her seem even less experienced in a sense.
They shoot the stuff, and the dummies normally just have a little BB in them. So.
And so you got the guns this morning. You and Sarah are the only ones who have, is it a combination?
So right now, holding her hair up with one hand, stroking it with another, this would be seen as a pacifying behavior because we have lots of nerves on our head. So as we pull our hair, we're fidgeting, we're feeling calmer when we do things like this.
Is it safe?
It is, yeah.
Okay, and you guys are the only ones who have that combination? Okay. But the rounds are...
They're in the truck, yeah. The truck gets pretty much locked up every night. I mean, not like padlocked, but just on set. And the thing for them, and none of them had any barrel obstructions. So, yeah.
So you check the gun, but do you check the blanks and the dummies as well?
I do check the dummies. I check all of them, and they all...
She keeps doing the hair flipping as they're talking about loading the guns, dummies, blanks, all of these things. When they're talking about subjects related to the bullets, she does a lot of this ventilating behavior.
They all showed that they were not hot, I guess you could say.
And where were they when they were out?
They were inside with all the camera crew and everything. It's, you know, COVID, everything happening right now. They don't really like a lot of people in there.
Okay.
And so usually I'm like hardly allowed in there unless there's actual firing happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you inside this morning?
I walked in there and I handed the gun to Alex a couple of times.
So as she's talking about giving the gun to Alex, she ends up pulling up her mask again. Now that's interesting because it could be because they're talking about COVID that she just thought to put it back up, but we could also be seen as a defensive maneuver because that way you can't read somebody's face. So having masks, having different props, having things like that can be a way of blocking other people, keeping them at a distance.
Alex took it and everyone was there with him.
Alec? Okay.
Baldwin, yeah.
Baldwin? Okay, so you handed him the gun this morning.
Yeah.
Does he...
And now her body is closing up. As she's talking about Alec Baldwin having the gun, you're seeing the arms cross, which to me appears to be defensive. So right now, the more they get into this, the more defensive postures we're seeing.
And everyone was there with him.
Alec? Okay.
Baldwin, yeah.
Baldwin? Okay, so you handed him the gun this morning.
Yeah.
Does he pass it off to anybody? Were you able to see that?
At one point, Dave had it. I handed it off to Dave while he was sitting in for the shot.
Okay.
And you can see here now she's gripping her arm a little bit. It looks like she's almost getting ready to hold her elbow. It really is a way to self-soothe. It's like holding oneself. Very different than a casual, comfortable crossing of one's arms.
All right, so you guys were the only three handlers prior to lunch?
Alec, Dave, me. Dave was after lunch.
Okay.
Dave was after lunch. Yeah, that should have been the only ones. Maybe Sarah, possibly, but yeah. Because that's the thing, they chill on our...
She goes back to the somewhat socially inappropriate behavior of wiping her nose on her shirt, picking at her nose, rather than asking for a tissue or rather than asking to excuse herself, which is just very interesting. It speaks once again to how a jury might look at her and see her as someone who is young or someone who is irresponsible. Not saying that she is, but it may be interpreted that way, and those behaviors don't help.
Because that's the thing, they chill on our little table, and we're pretty much there all the time.
Okay. I mean, the blanks.
No, no blanks were loaded.
No, like nothing today.
Yeah, no blanks were loaded today. I was like getting ready for it. I had my fanny packs like full of like blanks and everything. But
okay. So when was the last time you loaded it?
This isn't really something that you see a lot of. This is a somewhat unusual position. I interpret this as her wanting to leave, her wanting to get up and get out of there because this situation is uncomfortable.
Today I was like getting ready for it. I had my fanny packs like full of like blanks and everything. But
okay. So when was the last time you loaded it?
Now let's move on to a few minutes of the trial and see if her body language appears to be different. Right now we're looking at a little clip from the second day of the trial. I want you to pay attention to what she's wearing and how she's made up right now. Now if you look, she's got a couple of bamboo sticks in her hair. She's got an outfit that has some design on it. She has some pretty strong eye makeup on. The challenge with this is that because she's young, because she's a novice, people are going to interpret that as her not taking this situation as seriously as she should. By her standards, this may be very conservative. As we saw in the last video, her style tends to be a little bit more alternative. So dressing like this to her may seem very conservative, but to jury members, to people who need to know that she is an incredibly serious person who takes her job seriously and does everything in a way that can conform and that's within all of the rules, it's probably not advisable to do much of anything outside of the norm. So dressing like this might actually work against her. And as far as her expression, her body language right here, this is pretty typical of what you see of her. She doesn't express a lot of emotion during the trial. They also don't show her a whole lot, but we're going to watch just a little bit of her during this trial so we can see what her baseline behavior typically is.
Are the 4440s.
So right now they're talking about various types of bullets, and I wanted to show you a little bit about what Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's posture is during this while they're talking about these things. If you look, she sits back in her chair. Once again, I know this sounds minute because I'm not trying to be critical, because I think everybody is allowed to behave however they feel and see fit during a trial. But I do think that as a jury watches this, as they see her sitting back, looking fairly casual, crossing her arms, it's very possible that they are going to interpret her as not serious. And that can be a big problem when it comes to making a decision about something like this, because jury members have to make decisions on who they believe, what kind of character they believe this person has, and they may interpret her tendency to sit back, to be disengaged, or to be someone who does not take this seriously. Once again, I'm not saying that those facts are true about her, but this body language may give people that impression. One of the challenges is that somebody like Johnny Depp, for example, we saw him in a very high-profile trial. He can dress in an alternative way and get away with it because he's older, he's been around a long time, he's very well established as a very popular actor. As someone who is new and is young at this, it's just going to have the opposite effect. It is not probably going to work in her favor. We'll go ahead and stop right here because a lot of what we see is the same type of body language, the same type of impressions, but I don't think that the footage that we've watched, nor do I think the way that she presents in court, is probably going to work in her favor. Because as an armorer, you have to be very serious, you have to be all about safety, and people may believe that she's somebody that doesn't take her responsibility seriously enough, or is too lackadaisical about things, or is disengaged. I'm not trying to form any opinion on her guilt nor her innocence, but I do want to give you some idea of what I think that her body language gives across. And in many ways, when we saw the police interview, she was answering questions, but the body postures were oftentimes defiant or overly relaxed. That doesn't mean that's how she was feeling, but that's how people may view it when they watch it. Hopefully this has helped you better understand some of the body language we're seeing so far. There is a lot to go through in this case. I'm having people giving me other recommendations already, so there may be some other people I take a look at. If you have any thoughts or questions, or you have any recommendations, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.